The art of closing a deal in sales is an inexact science which most American sales teams struggle to find consistency in doing. It's estimated that 72% of sales teams across America, as reported by Gartner, feel overwhelmed with the number of skills it requires to do their job. The survey also revealed that 45% of sellers are less likely to obtain quota, leading to worsened commercial outcomes for their entire organization. For my friend Kelvin Johnson, he is the co-founder and CEO of Brevity, a Twin Cities-based company backed by 7 institutional investors, which uses AI role-play-driven platform to help sales teams improve their revenue performance. Sales Trap Prevention Playbook by Kelvin Johnson revolutionizes the way sales professionals drive revenue and close deals. Based on insights from over 60 sales organizations, this cutting-edge guide focuses on daily micro-training, which build habits, which in turn produces tangible results. With a structured 15-minute-a-day methodology, Sales Trap Prevention Playbook sharpens sales acumen and mitigates common sales traps, which in turn builds high-performing teams. And Johnson joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Kelvin, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to learn how you help sales teams through brevity, my friend. Great to see you, and happy Monday to you.
Happy Monday.
So, Kelvin, tell me all about Brevity. I know it's a Minnesota-based firm that helps sales professionals through AI sort of elevate their revenue and high performance, my friend. So tell me all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Brevity we pioneered one of the first AI role play software platforms that's really designed to help improve conversation skills for a wide variety of roles and different functions that really impact the most meaningful business metrics and outcomes for large organizations. You know, some of the primary methods are helping sales teams onboard reps faster. Another is making sure sales teams can generate more meetings, more pipeline. And then lastly, making sure sales teams can close more deals. And we do that through interactive conversation and presentation training where people are able to get a score, start, stop, continue feedback to really improve those chances and making sure they're not practicing on their actual prospects or existing customers.
Absolutely, my friend. Well, I know that you've been in the game of sales for a while, my friend, and it's interesting that you brought up that sales is all about conversation. You know, I believe that sometimes, sales is an inexact science, and it's important to have systems and processes in place in order to do that, to boost revenue and all the rest of it, my friend. So tell me, what goes into the art of closing a sales deal, in your opinion? And how does having the ability to conduct a quality conversation play into that? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, so a lot of closing, there's a concept that was coined by Sandler: you qualify hard to close easy. Now, one of the most important things when it comes to closing is a good qualification process, but most importantly is a good justification process. And what are the costs and consequences of that prospect not having your solution, and getting them to admit the various pains and challenges that they're facing without your solution, making sure you get a clear visibility into what constitutes a win, not necessarily how the product works, but what's the result of them using your product or solution. And then once you have a clear problem definition, win definition, really competing against them not doing anything at all, right? Really competing against the cost of no decision, and making sure you're doing a good job of articulating what's at risk if they don't do anything. So those are in a very high level, making sure you have a strong qualification process, making sure you have a clear justification process is super important. A lot of companies and sellers sometimes jump from a demo right to a proposal or contract review. We typically encourage our customers to do what's called a business justification step, which is a living document that has their logo and letterhead, and it's a narrative as to what problem are we solving, what are the options that they've explored, what do they get in return, what's the return, what do they get in return for doing this, what's the cost of waiting, and since some of the intangible benefits are some of the big ways that we found as very important to make sure we're justifying and not just proposing, if that makes sense, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. And uh, 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 before we started recording this, my friend, you had mentioned to me that your book just got published this weekend, and I want to congratulate you on that, my friend. And I also
Thank you.
you're welcome, and I also want to know about the Sales Trap Prevention Playbook, my friend, because I know that you consulted with over 60 sales organizations to put it together, and it's all about helping, as I mentioned, sales teams increase their performance and revenue, my friend. So tell me about the playbook and the book you just published over the weekend, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people use the words practice makes perfect. And what we found at Brevity and the purpose of the Sales Trap Prevention Playbook is really around it's a missing adjective. We believe that perfect practice makes perfect. So by reading this book, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get a stronger ability to diagnose and be able to diagnose what's causing your deals to shrink, stall, or die on the vine. And with this new type of technology that allows you to simulate a real conversation or presentation, the biggest problem we had to address was not, or is the role play simulation realistic and relevant? At this point in the market, that is table stakes. What you hear in your day-to-day conversations, Brevity and a lot of other people that have built AI role play softwares can simulate a real and realistic conversation. The trick is, are you picking the right thing to work on? And you understand the cost and consequences of not being prepared for the commodity trap, not being prepared for the price to value trap, not being prepared for the negotiation trap. So what the output of this book is being able to diagnose based on your sales process, the symptoms your team is running into in your closed loss report, and what's going to be the most meaningful curriculum or conversation drill that's going to greatly improve the chances of you having sales conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kelvin, I'm curious to ask you about cultural diversity in business and how you view cultural diversity to success in business and how your childhood and upbringing has contributed to your success. I'm curious to get your answer there, my friend.
Yeah, I'll combine both answers. So the way I grew up in the only chip in the cookie in private schools from K all the way past grad school, right? And, but I also grew up in the hood of West Philadelphia. So I have a perspective on multi race, multi different cultures. So I've been able to really understand whether it's politics, whether it's just personality styles. I've been able to really be immersed in multiple different cultures, which has really helped me in shape what I would call my outside of the box thinking when it comes to being able to create a company like Brevity, where you see all of these logos, behind the screen here. And there's multiple studies that just show what diverse teams can do, and that's really that's what's got me a big believer in making sure we have diversity, gender, diversity of thought, diversity of race, and that is really attributed to kind of how I grew up.
Yeah, absolutely. And just because you brought it up, I will follow up with this. Kelvin, I was born with cerebral palsy, and I graduated college, buddy, with a journalism degree, and I wanted to be a sports reporter. And I've actually found out at the age of 9 that I wouldn't be able to walk for the duration of my life because of the severity of my disability. And I've dedicated my adult life to advocating for the inclusive hiring of folks with disabilities because they're an underrepresented sort of segment of our population. So I'm wondering your thoughts on the role of diversity, equity, and inclusion in today's business conversation and the role that people with disabilities can play in creating a competitive advantage for companies. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, all need to be included there, right? Like one of our institutional funds that we just onboarded called Black Tech Nation Ventures. What I love is they help hold us accountable with a quarterly report, with stats, making sure that we have an inclusive environment at Brevity. And you do not want people from the same cloth. You need diverse opinions. When you look at me and my co-founder, Eric Nelson, completely different childhood background and different race, and we've been able to really mesh our collective thought capital well to proudly employ over 20 plus people. About maybe 18 months ago, we probably had about 5 in total. So it really is near and dear to our hearts to make sure we have an inclusive environment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's vitally important. And I thank you for your commitment in doing that, my friend. And I also was curious to get your thoughts on this report from a Salesforce that reported that 79% of sales executives believe that improving productivity of their existing sales teams is critical to reaching their new sales targets, my friend. So I'm curious, what comes to mind when you hear that, and what do you think of those findings, my friend?
It makes a lot of sense, right? A lot of the times people believe that there's a performance or productivity problem. We believe there's a practice problem. And, when I'm obsessed with the concept of finding the highest and best use of our technology. If we think about where the market was before Brevity and others like it, and you ask the question, how often are you role playing as a team or individual? The findings are astonishing. Most people are winging it. So now that we have technologies that can help you better prepare for meetings, we have technology not only prepare for meetings from a research perspective, but in actually simulating what could happen or what could go wrong in that meeting, and then having someone prepare, and you anticipate the questions, statements, or objections that could derail your sale, and you can practice 5 to 7 times before you actually have that conversation. Like even in our technology, you can literally grab someone's LinkedIn URL. It takes a best-in-class guess into the most dominant personality set, and you can actually simulate that conversation where it could go wrong, get a score, and digestible stop, start, continued feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, Kevin, I also wanted your thoughts on AI because a report from Forbes and Gallup found that 81% of sales leaders predict that AI and automation will help them reduce the time they spend on a manual task, my friend. So I'm curious to know what are your thoughts there? How do we guard against being oversaturated by AI? And what I mean by that is technology and AI is great, but we also don't want to miss out on the human experience. So, how do you think we can strike that delicate balance between the two? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so the delicate balance there, we are actually on the road more as a company. We are in the game of leveraging AI to improve what I call HI, human intelligence. With that being said, when it comes to some of the more mundane, research oriented tasks, AI it up. But when it comes to building intimacy, being connected to your customers, I'm typically on the road 11 business days a month because we understand there's a real desire right now for greater human connection. So you can't do it for every sales opportunity, but for some of the tier one prospects, typically early in our sales process, we try and identify, get myself or some of the leaders to actually fly out, meet those individuals in person. I'm a big fan of the acronym FORM, Family, Occupation, Recreation, Marital Status, making sure that we can do a good job of building a strong rapport with a lot of our customers and prospects is going to be super important. So that thirst and desire for human connectivity is even stronger, even with the advancements in AI.
Yeah, and Kelvin, I'm curious, just talking to you, my friend. I'm curious the role you think people like you, being a successful black businessman, have in sort of mentoring the next generation and the importance of mentoring specifically black youth. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
It's massive. So I'm on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters specifically for that reason. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, I grew up the only chip in the cookie in private, predominantly white schools my whole life, but also grew up in an all black neighborhood in West Philadelphia, ironically 1 block away from Will Smith. So like I understand the significance and importance of opening the minds and the possibilities, right? So when I was growing up, I grew up in the Allen Iverson era. Everybody, including the white boys, had their hair braided back in the day, and I was so focused on either making the NFL or NBA, but no one planted the seed in my head at that time. Even me being privileged going to these private schools. Hey, Kelvin, I know that you're working really hard to be an NBA player or NFL. Have you also considered what it would take to own the team to actually sign the checks? And this is what the paths were. I want you to continue to work on your jump shot, continue to work on your speed, but I want you to elevate that line of thinking. So that's exactly why I joined the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters, to make sure I can add an impact to, I'm in the Big Brothers Big Sisters Twin Cities chapter, but making sure I can plant that seed of possibility. It's massive.
Yeah, absolutely. Turning back to sales, my friend, I'm curious to ask you about the power of the 15-minute day? Because I know it's a proven approach that you put in the playbook, my friend. So I'm wondering if you can tell me all about it.
Yeah, so it's basically it goes down to it's that statement or quote by Abraham Lincoln. If I have an hour to chop down a tree, he's spending 55 minutes sharpening that axe. So there's only a certain finite period of time that we have. So with 15 minutes, usually one of the biggest variables to success with sales is having effective sales conversations. So what we found with brevity and why we came out with the sales trap prevention playbook is helping people identify what's going to be the most impactful 15 minutes for a team or an individual to work on a certain skill or a drill that's going to greatly increase the likelihood of having better performance. So that 15 minutes goes into something that from the time you do execute the role play as well as review the scoring and the start stop continue feedback, we've seen that as a massive advantage before people go into their day of sales calls.
Yeah, absolutely. Kelvin, I'm also curious to ask you about developing a quality sales reputation because I firmly believe that building strong relationships is sort of the heartbeat of any business, my friend. But I'm curious, how as a sales leader do you build quality relationships that are also based on trust? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, one of the easiest ways to build a relationship based on trust is focusing on active listening. One of the big things that we have in our sales process, especially on that second conversation, is we have a what we've heard slide where we essentially repeat back in our own language. So it's not just verbatim, but this is what we've learned. What did we miss? What needs to be modified? What needs to be added? And especially when new stakeholders enter the process, making sure we're collecting that information is one of the easiest and best ways to really do a good job of influence. People want to feel heard. People want to feel understood. And being able to do that in a tactful manner is one of the biggest ways to stand out. On top of that, taking it a step in another direction, one of our favorite uses of AI is what I call meeting preparation and research AI. I should be able to dig for information on what's going to be the highest and best use case. Now you can see what the CEO of their company on a most recent podcast is talking about in terms of key priorities and initiatives and how you can tie that back to brevity. You can check their LinkedIn page to see how many open positions they have for people that are in sales to see if there's a new hire ramp up opportunity. There's so much information at our fingertips. We just got to prompt and ask. And it's a lot easier to, what I say, edit than it is to create. So we want to make sure that we're being very hypothesis driven and allowing our prospects to show that we've done our research beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kevin, I'm going to ask you about the importance of notoriety of your brand. I know you've been featured in things like the Minneapolis Business Journal and the Minneapolis Star Tribune, just to name a few, my friend. So tell me about how your increased notoriety has helped you build sort of a brand and an influence both locally and nationally, my friend. What are your thoughts then?
Yeah, I would say those are a few, but publishing. This is my second book that has been published. Unbeknownst, one of our biggest strategic partners, when he was doing his diligence on brevity, that book I wrote called "Don't Fear the Sharks." Again, it wasn't the end all be all, but that gave this individual the confidence of like, hold up, this startup founder not only is a founder running a SaaS company, but also had the time to create a thought leadership book on pitching investors. Right, our first product was an AI powered pitch software. So that the notoriety from the books, the PR, really just allows you to, I would say streamline the process of connecting with people you necessarily don't know, but it also increases that inbound visibility as well.
Yeah, and as you've mentioned a couple of times during our conversation, buddy, you were originally born rather in West Philadelphia, but I know you've lived in several cities, including New York, Dallas, Denver, and of course you're currently living in Minnesota. So I'm fascinated to ask you about what lessons that you think you've learned about business lifestyle and serving people that have stuck with you all these years, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
So is your question like what have I learned from traveling to these moving to different cities?
Yeah, about leadership, business, and a lifestyle that sort of guides how you go about business and living life today, my friend.
Yeah, so I would say the blessing of moving to so many different cities is one, just your network, definitely expands. That's been unbelievable. I would say because of all those cities I've lived in, I have almost an investor in every single city. But I would say the biggest thing that I've seen as a hack in business is the mentorship. So in all of those cities, I was able to find and cultivate a mentor. And the way I've done my mentor sessions is I let them know how I'm going to show up, what I desire from them, what they can expect from me. And typically, I like to bring up an issue, concern, opportunity, or problem at my mentor sessions. It may be every other month, it may be quarterly. But what I like to do is give them an update on the previous piece of advice they gave me so they can see if I've been implementing what they recommended. And what that has done, Kevin, is that has built trust
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not just giving my word, but they're seeing things put to action. And through that process, I didn't know this going into creating Brevity, but a lot of those mentors ended up becoming my angel investors into the company through picking their brain, being prepared, sending them something 48 hours, 72 hours in advance, a one-page summary of an issue, concern, opportunity, problem, what I think I should do about it, and then asking them either for affirmation on my plan, identifying what's missing with my plan, new ideas, or alternative solutions. That's been a really good way for me to build credibility with all these various cities that I lived in.
Yeah, absolutely. Or said a different way, that life is a constant game of networking, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely, my friend. And Kelvin, the few minutes that I have left with you today, brother, why don't they get your definition of sales and business prosperity? What do you think that means to you?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. What's my definition of sales and business prosperity? It is unique to each individual. I would say to me, it's financial, definitely like financial independence, right? Being able to like post brevity or see how many more of these I have. But I love high school basketball. Like having the comfortability to potentially be an assistant or head high school basketball coach. That's something I love. So the way I describe business, prosperity is being able to do what I love to do on a more frequent and consistent basis. Visit my family whenever I need to. That's kind of like my definition of business prosperity, and is really around the concept of financial independence, but also being able to more frequently engage in hobbies, activities that I love to do with the people I love.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kelvin, my final question for you is this, my friend. If I asked you to plan and execute a movie about your life, and I asked you to start by giving me the scene that you first wanted to be depicted about your legacy. How would you want your legacy to be described in the movie about your life, my friend?
Yeah, so the number one word that comes to me is resiliency, right? So, there's been some severe challenges. A lot of entrepreneurs have had cash flow challenges. At some point in their entrepreneurial journey, being able to show a scene of, all right, this is where the cash balance is, showing the scrappiness, showing me, praying to praying for a solution that's beyond my comprehension, and seeing it come to fruition, and just thinking the Lord for pushing past and persevering. So really, it's the resilience that I would love to see showcased, and really the pits, seeing myself at really something that's really bad, with not a light in sight, but seeing that perseverance through it is what I would like to be showcased in a movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, tell me if people want to get connected with the good work that you do. What's the best and most effective way they can do that, my friend?
Yeah, Kelvin Johnson Jr. on LinkedIn, or if you want to see a demo of our technology, it'd be brevitypitch.com. You can just schedule a demo on brevitypitch.com.
Well, fabulous, my friend. I think you're doing fabulous work in advancing forward the new way of sales technology and inclusion as well, my friend. It's really been a great pleasure and privilege to have the opportunity to chat with you this afternoon, and I want to thank you for being here and engaging in conversation. It's most appreciated.
Thank you, Kevin. Great to meet you.